The only reason. Hi students, today I just want to tell you one thing, that why I have written here Plato. The only reason is that if you have not checked my YouTube channel, please go to YouTube channel after the class, and there I have uploaded a latest this thing lecture. उसका नाम है literary criticism, and in that literary criticism I have given a proper discussion about Aristotle. So just complete that Aristotle discussion, that lecture from my YouTube channel. The lecture name is Literary Criticism, and the second lecture is Plato. So in this way, what will it will be helping you, that you will be getting the chronology of it. From there, you will be completing the Aristotle and the continuation Plato. The moment I will finish this Plato here, I will come back to my lecture, which I had finished day before yesterday. Is it clear? So all the students who are watching me live, please come to the message box and just make your presence here. So students, a very good afternoon once again to all of you. And I would also like to share one thing which I have been listening and receiving phone calls from all over India students, that today, due to the request of innumerable students, I am trying to launch a live class exactly for the English literature students, all those English literature students who are from BA, MA, MPhil, PhD, IAS, mains in English literature, PGT, PhD entrance, CRET, or whatever exam they may be. If they are a student of English literature, they should join my class, which will be known as History of English Literature. So this is a request which has come from the students, because the history of English literature part is very weak for most of the students. And this has to be very strong, whether it is TGT even, or it is PGT or NET or any top level exam. So all those students who are watching me live and listening to me, they may get in touch with me through my WhatsApp number and enroll themselves, so that they may get my classes only for history of English literature. And I think I'll be covering the entire history of English literature in maximum 1 month or maybe 1.5 months maximum. So it will be really good for you. So coming back to Plato. See students, aesthetic criticism एक word होता है. Aesthetic criticism. I think I have mentioned this name also before while in the class. Aesthetic criticism began with man's intellectual effort to explain the phenomena of taste and distaste. कि टेस्ट का और डिस्टेस्ट का क्या फिनोमेना होता है, ये एस्थेटिक क्रिटिसिज्म ने शुरुआत किया मैन के इंटेलेक्चुअल एफर्ट को बताने के लिए. एंड दिस स्टार्टेड मींस aesthetic criticism started with a simple question as, why do we like or dislike a work of art? कोई भी वर्क ऑफ आर्ट है, हम उसको लाइक और डिसलाइक क्यों करते हैं? एंड दिस अगेन लीड्स टू अनदर क्वेश्चन, दैट व्हाई डज अ राइटर और एन आर्टिस्ट राइट अ पोएम or even paint a picture or so many other things? Why? Can you give me the answer, that why does the writer is writing, why the artist is doing some artwork, or why a painter is painting? And this again leads to the inquiry as to how he does it. वो कैसे करता है? Interrogation is an essential part of the intellectual activity of man. सबसे बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज एक पढ़े लिखे इंसान में इंटेलेक्चुअल एक्टिविटी अगर किसी इंसान की है, तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है इंटरोगेशन, which is an essential part of the intellectual activity of man. But it has become more than ever insistent. How? With the evolution of human civilization. अगर ह्यूमन सिविलाइजेशन नहीं है, कल्चर नहीं है, तो इंटरोगेशन करके भी हम क्या करेंगे? एंड दिस कल्चर, दिस सिविलाइजेशन itself being related to the capacity for making an intellectual approach to life. So this capacity emerges at a certain level of civilization when men have learned to apply reason. जब लोगों ने शुरुआत कर दी अप्लाई करने के लिए रीजन, रीजन मीन्स दिमाग, टू द नीड्स ऑफ सोशल लाइफ. हमें सोशल होना है. We are social animals. We live in a social togetherness. So this has developed. हमने जैसे जैसे डेवलप किया, हमने रीजन लगाया, हमने माइंड लगाया. अगर हम यूरोप की बात करें, in Europe, this condition manifested itself definitely in the ancient Greece, and the first notable contribution was made by no other than but Socrates, जिसको हिंदी में हम लोग सुकरात कहते हैं. Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. Socrates' attitude was social and ethical, who was mainly concerned with the useful in the material life and the good in the moral life. Indeed, he may be said to have identified. Indeed, he may be, बहुत ध्यान से सुनिएगा. Indeed, he may be said to have identified beauty with utility. किसको आइडेंटिफाई किया होगा? ऐसा कहा जाता है सॉक्रेट्स ने, ब्यूटी को यूटिलिटी के साथ. एंड इन द हियरार्की ऑफ द एलीट, he gave only the 6th place to poets in the order of their social importance. He gave the 6th place to the poets. किस प्रकार से? उनके सोशल इंपॉर्टेंस के हिसाब से. So, Socratic attitude may be said to underlie the substance of Plato's arguments regarding poetry. So this you have to understand, that the Socratic attitude, which may be said to underlie the substance of Plato's argument regarding poetry. And Plato stated his ideas on poetry mainly in his work Ion. Then Phaedrus, Phaedrus. Then Republic, especially in the chapters 2, 3 and 10. And ultimately, his views on poetry are closely related to the metaphysics. He looked upon the phenomenal world as a pale reflection of the ideal essences. He was one of the earliest philosophers to infer that the material world, being subject to constant changes, ये जो मटीरियल वर्ल्ड है हमारा, ये हर समय कांस्टेंट चेंजेस का मतलब होना ही होना है. कैनॉट बी सेड टू possess the stability, to means कि it cannot be said to possess the stability that reality should have, and therefore it must be regarded as a world of appearances, and those appearances are of illusions. And he conceived the idea that all material objects, even if they are very trivial means tuchh, have an eternal and absolute pre-existential state apart from the accident of its earthly appearance. And when the poet writes poetry, he is producing a mere imitation of appearances. जब पोएट कोई पोइट्री लिख रहा होता है तो वो क्या प्रोड्यूस कर रहा होता है कि हमें ये पता है कि ये पेन है, हम इसी को इमिटेट करके तो लिखते हैं. दिस इज पेन इन माय इमेज, दैट इज कॉल्ड कॉपी ऑफ कॉपीज. copy of copies, imperfect and incomplete. He cannot imitate reality or truth. He can only imitate appearances. Perhaps Plato would imply, though he does not state in it so many words, that as the poet is urged by an emotional excitement, what Shakespeare has written somewhere, a two-line word, two word, fine frenzy, जिसको कि शेक्सपियर ने कहा है fine frenzy. He is more than ever disabled from perceiving the truth, even if he had the mind or the desire to do so. I'll just give you an example, students. When a carpenter makes a table, he is producing an imitation of the idea of a table. If the poet describes it, he is producing only an imitation of what the carpenter had imperfectly imitated. So that is what Plato means when he says that poetry is only an imperfect imitation of an imitation, that is a copy of a copy. Truth appeals to our good-like reason, that is God-like reason. But appearance can appeal only to the sentiments and emotions, which are fleeting, which are impermanent, which are attached to the passing phenomena. दूसरे शब्दों में हम कह सकते हैं इसको, जिसको कि प्लेटो ने कहा है ट्रूथ और रियलिटी. एंड ट्रूथ और रियलिटी कुड ओनली कम टू अ मिस्टिक. जैसे विलियम ब्लेक की पोएम पढ़िए, ब्लेक इज अ मिस्टिक, वर्ड्सवर्थ इज अ मिस्टिक. देयर आर सो मेनी पोएट्स हु आर कॉल्ड एज पोएट्स ऑफ मिस्टिसिज्म. सो यहां पे भी दूसरे शब्दों में प्लेटो ने ये कहा है दैट ट्रूथ और रियलिटी could only come to a mystic, and that one who could penetrate the veil of appearance. Veil means V-E-I-L, the veil of appearance. Perhaps Plato had in mind something like the daimona of Socrates. उसके कभी माइंड में रहा होगा जो सोक्रेट्स ने लिखा है डाइमोना, DAIMONA. बट द पोएट परसीव्स विद द एड ऑफ हिज सेंसेस. कोई भी पोएट होता है वो अपने सेंसेस, अपने उसी से किसी भी चीज को परसीव करता है. हर आदमी का परसेप्शन अलग अलग होता है. हम इसको जिस नजरिए से देखते हैं, हो सकता है आप उसको नजरिए से ना देखें. एंड द सेंसेस कैन कॉम्प्रिहेंड only the external appearance, which induces what may be called a state of self-hypnosis. And what the poet performs in this state of mind, necessarily shows what? A want both of competence, हम उस लायक हैं या नहीं, and a sense of responsibility. Then come to the idea of mimesis. The idea of mimesis or imitation that was to become, you can say, one of the important things of the classical theories of literature originated with Plato. But since he does not recognize the reality of the material or the phenomenal world, he not only did to imitate, or you can say he not only did not attach to the imitation, but he looked upon it as more or less delusive function of the mind. Why? क्योंकि imitation is something which is meant to the unreal, and hence it is a wasteful exercise of the human faculties. Plato's attitude being social, he could not support a function that had no social utility, and so imitation cannot claim the same status as creation. Now, द ट्रू एम ऑफ लाइफ, जिंदगी का जो एक सच्चा एम होता है, शुड बी टू रियलाइज नॉट ओनली ट्रूथ, सच्चाई ही देखना नहीं होता, बट गुडनेस, अच्छाई. एंड द हाईएस्ट फंक्शन ऑफ द स्टेट is to promote goodness among its citizens. Goodness consists in maintaining the civic virtues, and so is the chief concern of the rulers of the commonwealth, the guardians of the state. Looking at the point of view of Plato, somewhere Plato felt himself called upon to denounce the activities of poets who did disservice to society, जिन्होंने सोसाइटी को सर्विस दी ही नहीं. कैसे? By representing the gods as cruel, as revengeful, and even licentious. Nor did he approve of the representation of the weaknesses of heroes like Achilles. He did not even spare Homer from this journal criticism which we are discussing. From here, the poet did not imitate the highest good, but on the contrary, he imitated the untrue or the imperfect. So, it is the duty of the guardians to prevent poets from describing the baser instincts of man, and for this reason, to banish them from the state. Plato would have fully endorsed the strict vigilance exercised by the Communist Party in its role of guardian of the people over literature, over art. And it would be wrong to infer that Plato was unaware of the power and the influence of poets, or the beauty and the charm of poetry. He had a very high appreciation of poetry, of both, and especially in Republic too. He admitted that the sweetness of the production of the muses might be used effectively to lead children to submit willingly to the austerities demanded by the laws. He also acknowledged the power of the orderliness, the power of the harmony, and these things characterized the arts, and the capacity to provide a necessary relaxation in the life of man. The imitation of poets, being of a nature which is influencing so many passions and has the effect of weakening the moral fibers, for the excess of emotions which is produced is likely to have a dangerous effect after all. And Plato has admitted that Homer was the greatest of the poets, but judging Homer by the best civic standards, Plato found the influence of Homer in every way and entirely undesirable. जो कुछ भी होमर ने लिखा है, of all those things which Homer has written, he would admit only the hymns to the gods and the praises of famous men, for these alone had the proper influence on the civic life. So Plato brought into the sphere of literary criticism the fundamental questions of the true relation between poetry and life. Poetry क्या है, life क्या है? considering life in its social manifestations. And he took his stand on the broad platform that nothing that did not exercise a proper moral influence on society had any right to be admitted into society. उसका कोई हक नहीं है कि वो सोसाइटी में एंटर हो पाए जिसका कि प्रॉपर मॉरल इन्फ्लुएंस सोसाइटी में नहीं हो. And so he found a conflict between poetry, which imitated illusions and philosophy, जिसको कहते हैं हिंदी में दर्शन, and this imitation of the illusion and philosophy which pursued the highest truth. The Platonic attitude to poetry recurs again and again and again, where in the Elizabethan age and in the Victorian age in English poetry, in Matthew Arnold, in Tolstoy, and even to some extent, in the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. Every time, of course, with the new points of emphasis or elucidation, Plato would have given short shrift to the modern aesthetics, even to the symbolists, even to the images, though curiously enough, they are based on the formalistic theory which Plato was one of the earliest to enunciate. Any theory that attached greater importance to form and expression should be fundamentally opposed to Platonic doctrines, but the conception of truth as idea, IDEA, which he evolved on mathematical lines of reasoning, encouraged the evolution of such theories. For the perfection of form, which contained, for example, in an ideal mathematical circle or even line, which can be imitated only imperfectly on the planes of reality. And such reasoning necessarily is you can say something of abstractionish in character. Abstract word सुना है आपने? Abstract, abstractionist in character, and so can take us far away from realities. तो अगर abstractionist in character होगा तो निश्चित रूप से हमें वो reality से दूर ले जाएगा. It is correct. So, but we can say that his view of what the arts, arts, imitate is an intellectual abstraction. And this intellectual abstraction was later brought out by Aristotle even. It should, however, be remembered that Plato did not formulate, like Aristotle, a systematic theory of poetry and arts, but he expressed his views incidentally, where in Ion, in Phaedrus, and principally in his work Republic. Whatever we may think of his peculiar views on these matters in general, it is to be admitted that he has made at least 3 basic contributions to the principles of literary criticism. 3 basic contributions. And these 3 basic contributions अगर आप जान गए तो समझ लीजिए ये लेक्चर वसूल है. पहला, the theory of imitation as the origin and purpose of poetic creation. The theory of imitation as an origin and purpose of poetic creation. Second, the theory of the social value of poetry and the arts in general. And the last, the relation between formalism and illusionism. The relation between formalism and illusionism and the concrete realities out of which they are abstracted, and that which constitute the content of art. We may not indeed, we do not agree with Plato's views, but since his time discussion has revolved around these and has helped us in formulating the foundations of criticism. Particularly, Plato first enunciated the basis for the contrast between the abstract idea and the concrete reality. And it is a strange paradox. Paradox means opposite. That while he banished poets from the Commonwealth, because he considered their activities antisocial to his own conception of ideal perfection. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? To his own conception of ideal perfection, and which may be traced in the various modern abstractionist theories of art. और वो abstractionist theories of art कौन सी हैं? Imagism, surrealism, cubism, etc., which place greater emphasis on form, जो ज्यादा emphasis देती हैं on form rather than on content. Hello everybody. Today I am able to see few students who have reciprocated on my message box. So it is a good thing that if you just say a hello, hi. So it just gives me a feeling that the students are listening, because हम तो बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हैं आपके साथ. So I would just like to see that all my students are here. So this was a very crisp, precise, and very targeted lecture on the unit literary criticism, where Aristotle I have done, not directly here, but I have placed that on YouTube, that same lecture. And the second lecture is Plato. I would have taught again, suppose if you request me, so I can teach you again. But I'm 100% sure that once you listen to that lecture, Aristotle, it is very simple, and I have made it very simple. So in case you have any problem, you can tell me. If not, then that is the first lecture on Aristotle, and this is the second lecture on Plato. Now coming back to our lecture, where we were going through the history of English literature in the last Friday. So we were discussing the John Milton and all the details of John Milton. So where today we have to start discussing about the hero of Paradise Lost. I'm sure you must be able to remember that we were doing Milton. So a very important question indeed here, that who is the hero of Paradise Lost? And the problem of the hero in Paradise Lost is not be able to solve, because this question is in itself a controversial question. And before examining this question, we have to discuss a lot of details regarding the characters of the epic, that different critics, different people, scholars and professors have different views regarding the hero of Paradise Lost. But it is also true that most of the critics consider Saturn as the hero, because he possesses the limitless, the heroic and the highly upgraded versions of a hero. मतलब हीरो जैसा होना चाहिए, उसके अंदर वो सारी चीजें हैं. He is energetic, he is forceful, he is dauntless, he is inflexible, he has a lot of courage, he is in a position not to resolve, and moreover he is a leader of the fallen angels. और ऐसा कहा जाता है that मिल्टन ने ही ये सारी खूबसूरतियां, ये सारी चीजें, ये सारे फीचर्स एंडो किए थे सैटर्न को with those heroic qualities. And through the character of Satan, the poet has expressed his own pride, his own temper, his own love for liberty, his own authority and his heroic energy. And it is Saturn who has made bold speeches exhibiting the fierce feeling of the hatred and the belief in war. To him, weakness is a crime. You must remember this line. I'm sure you must be knowing this line. Weakness is a crime. Fallen cherub, to be weak is miserable. Doing or suffering. याद करिए वो लाइन जिसमें सेटन ने कहा है, what though the field be lost, all is not lost. That unconquerable will and the study of revenge, immortal hate and courage never to submit, never to yield, and what is else not to be overcome. So these famous lines, these energetic lines, passionate lines, full of revenge, is in 100% heroic, and the way he is making heaven of hell and takes all types of risks in making avenging on God. And so, undoubtedly, he can be considered as the hero of the poem. अब याद करिए, शायद आपने आगे की किताबें नहीं पढ़ी होंगी, दैट मिल्टन ने ही अपने ही कैरेक्टर को बाद के बुक्स में डिबेस कर दिया था. If Milton would not have debased his own character in the later books of Paradise Lost, Saturn begins to descend low in our esteem, and his heroic figure gradually loses his splendor and is completely degraded. ये मिल्टन ने ऐसा क्यों किया? Nobody knows. And some critics are of the opinion that they are basically not prepared to accept Adam as the hero of Paradise Lost, because according to these critics, they think that Adam is a passive figure and he has no action in it. Action is wanting in him. And of course, Adam is not a hero like Ulysses, like Achilles, who has won wars and who has defeated a lot of enemies. So Adam is defeated, no doubt, through Eve and loses paradise, but he achieves victory and regains paradise happier far. Adam's victory is of a spiritual nature, and he should be considered as the hero of the Paradise Lost. This can be an only argument. Now, my next topic would be that, do you know that Milton's poetry has a lot of autobiographical elements? So we can say here that Milton through and through is autobiographical, because it is the mirror of the life of his own life, which he has tried to come out with it, and he has been contrasted with Shakespeare, because in Shakespeare's plays it is very difficult to find Shakespeare, but Milton can be seen also, can be felt also in almost all the works he has produced. जैसे अगर हम बात करें उसकी अर्ली पोएम्स पे, जिसको कंपेनियन पोएम्स कहते हैं, so his companion poems like El Allegro, Il Penseroso, they are basically reflections of his own poetry. Comus हो गई, Lycidas हो गई, which is an elegy, which talks about his dead friend Edward King and the treatment of the great epic Paradise Lost. There are so many personal echoes of Milton's blindness and his even scholarship level, his knowledge of history, geography, classical literature, and everything. And this scholarship level is basically a stamp of his own personality. Even in Paradise Lost, you will find many references to his own life, his own helplessness, his loss of sight, and his Puritanism. So this is what was in totality, in brief. I'm sure that after listening to this lecture, you can write well, speak well, and your understanding of the age with the monarchies, with the particular poet should be very sound. So I'll just take a 60 seconds break, because continuously I've spoken for 35 minutes. It was a breathless session for me. I will take 1 minute break, students. So by the time you just revise what you have written, and just again I would advise you to just give me your attendance. In a classroom, attendance is important. So I should know that how many students are here in my live classes. Okay, students, just 1 minute. North, from east, from west. Yeah, Neha, Febina, Nisarga, Saman, Shreya, all of you, good afternoon. Where are all my other students from South, from North, from East, from West Bengal? I'm not able to see them here. Are they absent today? I think most of them are absent and they must be taking the video class in the evening. But whoever is watching me here, please come live here and just give me a hello. So, all of you जिनका मैं messages देख पा रहा हूं, just give me one line message that sir I have understood Plato and Milton. Just give me a message all of you that this criticism का जो आपका एक अलग यूनिट है उसमें जो हमने आपको वो पढ़ाया है एरिस्टोटल थ्रू, उसमें लेक्चर बता दिया मैंने. आज जो प्लेटो पढ़ाया है वो आपको कैसा लगा? श्रेया, समन, फेबिना, नेहा, निसर्गा, can you just tell me so that for the other lectures which will be coming soon in the criticism part I would be preparing accordingly. मेरा हिंदी में ये कहना है कि ये जो आज मैंने प्लेटो का लेक्चर लिया ये आसान था, कठिन था, ठीक ठाक था, या इसमें कुछ और भी आगे मुझे देखना होगा? नो मैसेजेस स्टूडेंट्स. आप लोगों ने कोई भी जवाब नहीं दिया कि आप लोगों को प्लेटो का जो मेरा आज का लेक्चर था वो कैसा लगा? हाउ वाज माय प्लेटो लेक्चर, द क्रिटिसिज्म पार्ट? Plato is clear, but Milton, because of network problem, missed some lines. So nothing to worry, Fabina, because you are going to get the same lecture after the class, even the complete, right, in the video. Saman, it was a little difficult, but I was able to understand it. Saman, the reason of the difficulty was only because you must not have read these things initially properly. But you have written that yes, I have understood it, that is okay. You go through this lecture once again as a video when you will get the recorded. So 10-20% जो आपको नहीं समझ में आया वो आपको समझ में आ जाएगा. Nisarga, what do you mean by I could not know, sir? I could not know means? Neha, it is good. Okay, Neha, I'm happy that you could understand it. देखिए एक चीज मैं और आपको बता दूं वेरी क्लियरली कि थोड़ा सा तो स्टैंडर्ड आपको रखना होगा स्टूडेंट्स. अगर आप ये चाहो कि बहुत सिंपल राम जाता है, राम खाता है, राम पीता है मैं सिखा दूं, so that would also be not very appropriate. Why? Because as a student of English literature, you have ultimately to win, you have to come victorious from some battlefield. कहीं बोलना है, लिखना है, समझाना है, पढ़ाना है, तो थोड़ा सा तो स्टैंडर्ड मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा. अदरवाइज आई एम ट्राइंग कि हम बहुत सरल इंग्लिश में बात करें आपसे. सो नॉट टू वेस्ट टाइम नाउ, न्यू क्लासिकल एज, वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद द न्यू क्लासिकल एज. New classical age, which also means, I told you, the restoration age that starts from 1660 when Charles II came. And this new classical is what? New classical is a term which is applied to the literature of the restoration age and the 18th century. That is 1660 to 1798. करीब करीब आप देखिए 140 years का ये पूरा सिस्टम है. And the literature of this restoration period is called neoclassic because the writers of this age believed, इनका ऐसा मानना था, इनका ऐसा विश्वास था कि the writers of the ancient Greeks presented the best models. Preeti, good evening, sir. I am Preeti from Patna. Yes, I discussed some questions which I expected in exam from Plato and Milton. Okay. See, Preeti, your question is okay, but I can tell you one thing that you have a lot of, test series and all. Plato and Milton, there are hundreds and hundreds of questions which can be managed, but it cannot be discussed here. The reason is कि Milton and Plato are poets who are versatile and जिनका कोई अंत नहीं है. And because we have a specific time here and we have to cover so much, so I always advise students to solve my test series. And later on, you go for the test series. And first, complete your course. So you listen, Preeti, once again this lecture of Plato and make your notes also. You can consult my study material also. Some Plato might be given in that study material in that file. I remember उसका नाम है yes, literary criticism, उसका नाम ही है उस फाइल का. See some Plato version उसमें दिया होगा. क्लियर. और मिल्टन तो आप जानती हैं, इट इज सो ग्रेट एंड सो लेंदी एंड सो वर्सेटाइल. So there can be 100, 200, 500 questions which can come from his works, which can come from his detailings of any Paradise Lost or Samson Agnostic or anything, sonnets. My God, he's such a great writer. So that is a thing which will actually come with practice, and that is a thing which will come actually when you will make your self studies. ये सारी चीजें आपकी सेल्फ स्टडीज की हैं प्रीति. सो गॉट माई पॉइंट प्रीति. आई एम श्योर यू वुड हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट हाउ यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर एंड देन गो फॉर द क्वेश्चंस. This is not the time for questions basically. This is the time when you have to make your this system first perfect. So the neoclassical age, मैंने आपको बताया, it is called neoclassic because the writers of this age believed that the writers of the of the ancient Greeks presented the best models. चूंकि ग्रीक्स जो पुराने थे वो बेस्ट मॉडल्स पेश करते थे, तो इनको ऐसा लगता था कि वे उसी प्रकार से ये पेश करेंगे. एंड द मोनार्कीज ऑफ दिस न्यू क्लासिकल एज आर चार्ल्स टू, हु आई टोल्ड यू दैट ही वाज इन एग्जाइल, सन ऑफ चार्ल्स वन, हु वाज ब्रॉट बैक टू इंग्लैंड बाय साइनिंग अ ट्रीटी ऑफ ब्रेडा. ट्रीटी ऑफ ब्रेडा के बारे में मैंने आपको बताया था कि उसको साइन करवाया गया था, जिसमें यह कहा गया था कि he will do all the important works which was not done by Oliver Cromwell and Richard Cromwell. And basically that day when I told you about Oliver Cromwell and Richard Cromwell, and because of the death of Cromwell in 1658, which actually resulted in the restoration of monarchy, this Charles too was invited to return to Britain, and he was basically ये जो चार्ल्स टू है, इसका एक और नाम था, इसको लोग प्यार से बुलाते थे मेरी मोनार्क. व्हाई ही वाज कॉल्ड मेरी मोनार्क? बिकॉज ही यूज्ड टू लिव द लाइफ ऑफ लाइवलीनेस, and he basically people got a relief that after so many years, after 12 years, again the monarchy is getting back, and he had no legitimate children, so he was succeeded by his brother James II. चार्ल्स टू के बाद कौन आया? जेम्स टू आया, क्योंकि चार्ल्स टू का कोई लेजिटिमेट एयर नहीं था. एंड सो द सेकेंड सन ऑफ चार्ल्स वन. चार्ल्स वन का पहला लड़का हो गया आपका चार्ल्स टू. चार्ल्स टू को कोई एयर नहीं था, तो चार्ल्स टू का ही दूसरा बेटा जेम्स टू, ही असेंडेड द थ्रोन अपॉन द डेथ ऑफ हिज ब्रदर चार्ल्स टू, एंड ही वॉज द किंग ऑफ इंग्लैंड एज जेम्स टू. जेम्स टू होकर के आया, एंड किंग ऑफ स्कॉटलैंड एज जेम्स सेवन. क्लियर? सो ही वॉज द लास्ट रोमन कैथोलिक मोनार्क टू रेन ओवर द किंगडम्स ऑफ तीन राज्य, इंग्लैंड, स्कॉटलैंड एंड आयरलैंड. तो ये मोनार्कीज थी. कोई भी आप राज्य पढ़िए, कोई भी सब सिस्टम पढ़िए, तो हमेशा मोनार्कीज को ध्यान में रखिए. तो पहला हो गया चार्ल्स टू, फिर हो गया आपका जेम्स टू, मैं लिख देता हूं यहां पे चार्ल्स टू, देन जेम्स टू, और इसके बाद आता है आपका विलियम एंड मैरी. विलियम एंड मैरी, हस्बैंड वाइफ. सो ये जो विलियम एंड मैरी थे, दे बेसिकली were husband and wife, and they basically came to the throne as the monarch, and इनको कहते हैं joint reign, husband and wife का joint reign, and they began in 1689. 1689 से इनका आया था, 1689 to 1700 1702 इनको ऑफर किया गया था। एंड इसके बाद फाइनली फिर आ जाती हैं आपकी क्वीन एने 1702 ऑनवर्ड्स। तो ये आपकी हियरार्की है 1714। So now we will understand the features of the neoclassical literature. You have to know what is neoclassical literature. ये है क्या? कोई भी आपसे पूछ सकता है कि tell me something about neoclassical literature. So neoclassical literature is basically a literature which is characterized by realism. Realism का मतलब होता है जैसा है वैसा, कोई कल्पना नहीं, कोई फिक्शन नहीं, कोई मिलावट नहीं, and we are representing exactly as men are. And these writers of the neoclassical era, they used to brush pictures, the realistic pictures of a very corrupt society and court. And they used to emphasize more on vices, because realism tha isliye, rather than virtues. And neoclassical literature or society, or we can say literature in fact, was a literature of the society, and the writers in this age used to write for gentlemen, ladies, fashionable circles, coffee houses, clubs, drawing rooms, and they also wrote about politics, religion, and anything which was of social interest. And this age, the neoclassical age, is marked with realism, intellect, reason, good sense, and it had no room for the Elizabethan kind of poetry, that is imagination, enthusiasm, emotion, love. For example, Pope's The Rape of the Lock, which is supposed to be the masterpiece of that age. It has cruelly, mercilessly satirized the follies of the fashionable ladies of that time, and thereby trying to bring them good sense. And these neoclassical writers were very much dependent on the powerful patrons, and they belonged to either of the two parties. Some of them belonged to the Whig parties, and some of them belonged to the Tories, two parties, Whigs and Tories. And we will talk about Whigs and Tories now. The Parliament in England, since beginning, they comprised of two political major parties, while these two groups were not political parties in the sense that we know them. They were nevertheless two disparate political ideologies which dominated the political scene. And the Tories were the royalists. इनका दूसरा नाम था royalist, और एक और नाम था conservatives. The Tories were the royalists and the conservatives. And इनका जो interest था, इनका जो support था, it was always with the monarchy, means the crown. And the opponents were the Whigs, जिनको कहते थे People's Party या Liberalists. And they worked for the interest of the people, which was above the crown, राजा के ऊपर, public की प्रजा के सुख के लिए. They were also liberal and were always in competition, opposition to the Tories, जो कि ज्यादातर पावर में ही रहते थे, जो कि ज्यादातर पावर में रहते थे. So this was the characteristics of the neoclassical age. Who is John Dryden? Again, one of the most representative poet of the Restoration period, who was appointed poet laureate. ये सारे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं जो मैं आपसे बोल रहा हूं. He was appointed poet laureate by Charles II. And who was the poet laureate before John Dryden? This is also the question of net. Who was the poet laureate who died and then John Dryden became the poet laureate? Any answer, students? कोई आंसर दे सकता है? He was Devanant. DEVENANT. जॉन देवनंत. इन 1668 में इसकी डेथ हुई थी. तो जॉन ड्राइडन जो है ही वॉज मेड द पोएट लॉरिएट. ड्राइडन की जो मेजर वर्क्स थे इनके डिटेलिंग स्टडी आपको पढ़नी है, जो हमारे स्टडी मटेरियल में भी बहुत सारी दी होगी, बहुत सारी नहीं भी दी होगी. जैसे एस्ट्रिया रिडक्स, which was written in honor of the coming of the crown of Charles II. Annus Mirabilis, essay on dramatic poesy, Absalom and Achitophel, The Medal, Macflecknoe, Religio Laici, The Hind and the Panther, A Song for Saint Cecilia's Day, Alexander Feast, Fables, Discourse concerning the original and the progress of satire, etc. So these are the major writings of John Dryden. इनके one paragraph you have to know anyhow. The details, most of the details are already given in my study material. Now, Dryden is undoubtedly a great classical writer, a new classical writer, and Dryden did not allow his thoughts to go here and there like Chaucer or Spencer and any other poets into a Kalpana land, into a land of fairyland, and he also did not bother about the elemental human passions that inform great poetry or drama. He wrote Religio Laici. Religio Laici को इंग्लिश में कहते हैं religion of a layman. And his most famous religious poem is The Hind and the Panther. Now understand, The Hind and the Panther, जिसमें जो हिंद है, the Hind, is a symbol of Roman Church. This question has been asked many times. कि हिंद जो है किसका सिंबल है, तो आपको टिक करना है रोमन चर्च. एंड द एंग्लिकन्स आर, द पैंथर इज द सिंबल ऑफ एंग्लिकन्स. देन देयर इज अ पोएम मेडल. द मेडल इज अ पोएम which treats the political activities of that age. And if we talk about the new classical literature, the poet Dryden is also a poet by intellect, reason, good sense. He has also no room for imagination, enthusiasm, and emotion. If we talk about his poem Absalom and Achitophel, The Medal, or the Macflecknoe, all these poems have no imagination, very little depth of feeling, and very little spiritual growth. Why? Because these all poems are full with the intellectual analysis and argumentation. And undoubtedly, he was one of the greatest satirists of England, and he gave satire a direction. He gave satire a shape, and he raised that satire genre to the level of classical satire. His satire falls into three parts. उसका जो satire ही है, अपने आप में satire तीन हिस्सों में डिवाइजन है. एक है political satire, एक है religious satire, और एक है personal satire. And the best known satire and the masterpiece satire of its own kind is Absalom and Achitophel, which is considered to be one of the most political powerful satires ever written in English literature. And in this Absalom and Achitophel, he has used the biblical story of David and Absalom. And the story of David and Absalom he has used to ridicule the Whig party and also to avenge himself upon his political enemies. मैंने आपको बताया था अभी थोड़ी देर पहले कि चार्ल्स टू appears as King David and his illegitimate son, the Duke of Monmouth, as Absalom. Who is Achitophel? He is Shaftesbury. Shaftesbury is Achitophel, the evil counselor of Monmouth, and the Duke of Buckingham is Zimri. Clear? So, Dryden was a versatile writer who wrote prose, poetry, drama, and was a versatile writer जिसने कोई भी branch of literature को untouched नहीं छोड़ा. He was a great poet, he was a great dramatist, he was a great prose writer, and that is why he is regarded as the great founder of the modern prose style. He was such an original critic that Dr. Johnson calls him the father of English criticism. और क्या चाहिए? Dr. Johnson ने कहा है father of English criticism, and most of the critics have agreed to this great remark. If we talk about his essay on dramatic poesy, which is considered to be one of the most important landmarks in the history of literature, where he also finds innumerable prefaces he has written. He has written epilogues. He has written letters of dedication throughout his career. Some of his critical works, those are essay on satire, essay on heroic tragedy, essay on fables. You can write it down. Essay on satire, essay on heroic tragedy, essay on fables. And somewhere Dryden has regarded Chaucer, ये क्वेश्चन कई बार आ चुका है इसलिए मैं बता रहा हूं आपको. Dryden has regarded Chaucer as a rough diamond. रफ डायमंड समझते हैं? जिस डायमंड का काट छांट ना हुआ हो, रफ हो, अभी उसमें मशीनरी नहीं लगी, उसको काटा छाटा नहीं गया हो. So Dryden regards Chaucer as a rough diamond, and that rough diamond must be polished, must be refined. And as far as his versification is concerned, ड्राइडन को चौसर की जो वर्सिफिकेशन है वो हारमोनियस साउंड नहीं करती, एंड ही बिलीव्स दैट द वर्सिफिकेशन इज नॉट रेगुलर, एंड also fails to understand Chaucer's pronunciation, and even fails to understand the metrical beauty of his works. ये ड्राइडन का अपना पर्सनल ओपिनियन है. Clear? We have already discussed essay on dramatic poesy when we were discussing, remember, the non-fiction area, where we done all that essay on dramatic poesy, and that, yes, 4 characters, the 4 interlocutors. Remember that Crites, then Eugenius, then Lycidius, then Neander. I will tell you here that Crites is Dryden's brother-in-law. Who are these 4 characters? First, Crites, C-R-I-T-E-S. He is no other but Dryden's brother-in-law, जिसका नाम था Sir Robert Howard. The second was Eugenius. He was Dryden's friend. उसका नाम था Charles Sackville. Third was Lycidius. He was Charles Sedley. And the fourth was Neander, who was Dryden himself. So here, students, we will end the class today. I have covered almost most important portions of your chronological history, historical history development of English. And apart from this, I have also covered your one part of criticism, that is Plato. So I think a lot of homework is due for your next class, where in the next class I would start you the heroic drama, the tragedy of the 17th century, and would further move on. Clear, students? So once again, take care and meet you tomorrow.